Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to another video. So in this one, I wanted to take a bit of a look at the future of Delta Force. The alpha test has now come to an end, and just recently we got another AMA out of the game director, Shadow, and he went into a lot of details on certain topics that I think you guys will be interested in. So he's talking about the PC and the console release window. I know a lot of people have been asking about that. There's also a new test coming up soon. I'm not sure whether that one is classed as another alpha test or a beta test, but there is another chance for us to get in and get our hands on the game. Controller support is going to be coming. There are new maps coming as well, so we're going to delve into all of that. And then really, as the alpha has come to an end here, I just wanted to sort of wrap up my thoughts and feelings on what I've played of the game so far and where I think it's headed in the future. Guys, as always, if you do enjoy the content here on the channel, make sure you hit up that subscribe button. Plenty more to come, both on Delta Force and, of course, Battlefield. Tomorrow we will be playing some and trying out the new UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter that is now apparently going to be available in All Out Warfare, so that's going to be fun. So if that is something that you enjoy, make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss out on that. But without further ado, let's just start with jumping into the AMA, or the Ask Me Anything, and going over some of the answers that Shadow gave here. So first of all, let's address the big thing here, the release date. So what they've confirmed is that the PC release is confirmed for Q4 of 2024, which means basically the last 3 months of this year. I would guess it will be the earlier part of those 3 months. Like, I don't think they want to necessarily release it in December. I'd rather say that October or November would be a more fitting window, essentially around the same sort of timing that Battlefield like to release their games. Obviously, there isn't one coming this year, so that's going to be really, really good for Delta Force. And then for console and mobile, I know a bunch of you guys have been asking me, when is it going to be coming to console? I know you guys couldn't participate in the alpha test. That is going to be Q1 of 2025, or that is at least the intended date at the moment. So again, like the first 3 months of next year, a few months after the PC release, you're going to be able to hopefully play this on both console and mobile. Now, as for controller support, that is going to go hand in hand with the console release, which I guess kind of makes sense. So again, that's going to be Q1 of 2025. Now, on the topic of AI, they were asked whether they had any plans to remove it from the game entirely, and essentially what they said is they wanted it in for the alpha test so that depending on the number of players that were online, there would always be AI available to backfill the servers, and they are discussing this internally, whether AI should be completely removed or not. So they've not come to a decision, but they're definitely talking about it. They've said that any update on this will be communicated to everyone, so they're not just going to sneakily remove the AI. A statement of some variety will be given to us. But I don't know about you guys, my issue with the AI has always been the fact that they've been invisible. You don't know who is a player and who is an AI. I would just prefer for them to get rid of all of the AI in the game. But if they are going to have AI, I really think they should add a little suffix to the end of the name there and let us know that it is indeed an AI player. They haven't said anything about doing that, so that is for me a little bit worrisome. So next, a lot of people have been asking when the campaign is coming, along with the console and the mobile release. That seems to be slated for Q1 of 2025 as well. So that is the Black Hawk Down campaign. It's basically the third pillar of the game. We've already gotten Havoc Warfare, which is like the Battlefield mode. Then there's Hazard Operations, which is the tactical extraction shooter type mode. And then we've got the Black Hawk Down campaign, which is based on the same named game from earlier, I think sometime in like 2006 or 7, when Delta Force Black Hawk Down originally released. And that, of course, itself is based on the Ridley Scott movie, and the Ridley Scott movie is based on actual events that happened. So yeah, kind of confusing, but I think it's going to be good. Somebody also asked if they have any plans to implement a kill cam feature, and they've said that they are planning to do this. In fact, at the moment, the feature is already 70% complete, which is pretty cool. And this obviously is going to aid with us figuring out who is a cheater and who isn't. If you get killed in a really weird way and you have an inkling that somebody may be cheating, a lot of the time, if you look at other games like Call of Duty, you can tell pretty much from the kill cam, whereas that doesn't exist in games like Battlefield. And once we're talking about cheating, they have said that they specifically plan to double down on their anti-cheat system to implement a specific anti-cheat which is going to work against DMA cheats, which stands for Direct Memory Access. Direct Memory Access cheats are basically where you have a cheat running on a secondary PC so that the software itself can't be sensed or detected by an anti-cheat system on your main gaming PC. So similar to how somebody would have like a streaming PC, it sort of works the same way, but you've actually got a piece of hardware in that secondary PC, and that is giving you direct access to the memory in the game and allowing you to cheat. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it's generally the hardest kind of cheat to detect, and it seems that they are working to make sure that that doesn't happen in their game. Now, there's also going to be some new maps coming to the game as well. We're going to have 2 new Havoc Warfare maps. One of them is going to be infantry focused, and then there's going to be another Hazard Operation map coming as well. I believe some of those are going to be playable in the next playtest, and the next playtest is actually going to be at the Steam NextFest from October the 14th until October the 21st. So if you're not familiar with what Steam NextFest is, it's basically a bunch of games that release different demos so that we can try them out. It's basically games that are coming to Steam in the near future so that you can wishlist them and kind of get them up the rankings in that way, and Delta Force is going to be there, so I can only assume then that everybody is going to be able to gain access to this NextFest test or to this demo. So if you're somebody who missed out on getting a key for the alpha, you should be able to play the game then, well, as long as you're on PC. And then finally here, jets are going to be coming to the game eventually. Somebody asked about this again. Someone asked about this in every single AMA. Where are the jets? We've seen them in trailers, but strangely they haven't actually finished developing them for the game. So once they've had them in the trailers, it's probably unlikely, I think, at this point that they are going to be released whenever Delta Force releases into early access. But they have promised us that they're working on them. I'm not really holding my breath about them, because if we look at the other air vehicles, namely the helicopters in the game, they just perform pretty badly and they really don't feel very good to handle at all, even if you compare them to the helicopters in Battlefield 2042. Battlefield 2042 is kind of renowned as being one of the Battlefield games that has the worst vehicles. So with that said, looking to the future of Delta Force, having wrapped up around 30 or 40 hours of gameplay in the alpha test, what do I think of the game? Well, for me, I really enjoyed what I played of Havoc Warfare. I played that mode exclusively. I didn't dabble at all in Hazard Operations, so just bear that in mind. But I'm guessing that's also going to be the game mode that most of you guys as Battlefield players are interested in. And I seem to see that most people are in one of 2 different camps. Some people are enjoying the game and they say this is basically like a better Battlefield 2042. It's one of the better Battlefield experiences, if you want to call it that you can have at the moment. And then I think a lot of people are in the other camp, the more negative camp, where they're saying, why would you want to play this game when so much of it is clearly based on or inspired by Battlefield 2042, which we all know is renowned as one of, if not the worst Battlefield games. And I had a good long think about this. Why is that? Why is it that when DICE and EA release a Battlefield game with specialists, with all of these features that the Battlefield community don't like, but then Delta Force comes along and they put operators in their game, why do people not seem to have as much of a problem with that? So let's just break this down a little bit here. Obviously, these are just my own opinions, but this is how I feel about the game right now. So first of all, there are some things that Delta Force does better than Battlefield 2042. So the movement is a lot slower, it's a lot more slower paced in general, there is a tactical lean, it just feels a little bit more grounded in realism in that sense. I'm not going to say it's a milsim or anything, you know, quite so hardcore, but it definitely feels a little bit more hardcore, less running around, sliding, jumping around corners as we see in Battlefield 2042. And Battlefield games in the modern age have started to progress a little bit more in that direction, the Call of Duty direction, I like to call it. It's not quite COD levels of movement yet, but it's certainly closer to that than it was way back when Battlefield 3 released and Battlefield 4 released. And I know that a large part of the Battlefield community don't like that. They want to see things go back to being a little bit slower paced, so that could be one reason a lot of people are enjoying it. The second thing is that it actually has 3 distinct game modes that seem to be doing well, unlike Battlefield 2042, right? Battlefield 2042 tried this. They came out with Portal, which is basically completely infested by 10,000 skrillion% extra damage farm XP game modes that you really can't find a game for all of those crappy servers. Or you've got Hazard Zone. I don't think I even need to talk about Hazard Zone at all. And then if you compare that to Delta Force, well, they've got Hazard Operations, and like I said, I haven't played it, so I can't comment on it, but from what I've heard from other people who do enjoy extraction shooters and battle royales and those types of games, it's really, really good. Havoc Warfare also plays really, really good, and I can only assume that the third pillar, the campaign that's going to come out next year, is going to be pretty good as well. Then it's got much better weapon customization. In my opinion, it's just a class above 2042 at the moment. Outside of the plus system, maybe that is one thing that 2042 does have, which I think is a bit of a contentious point. I don't mind the plus system. I think it's quite an interesting system. Some people probably don't want to see that in the next Battlefield game. I'm sort of take it or leave it. If it's not there, I won't really care too much. And if it is there, that's cool as well in my book. However, not everything in Delta Force is better than in Battlefield 2042. So, for example, the vehicles are nowhere near as good, and as I've already said in this video, that is saying something because vehicles in Battlefield 2042 really aren't some of the best vehicles in the Battlefield franchise, not by a long shot. So, saying that in Delta Force they're that much worse is honestly quite the criticism. As I mentioned, there are also operators, aka specialists, in this game as too. They are likely gonna have some cheesy skins coming. I know that the developers have said they want to keep it slightly more grounded, slightly more realistic, but I know that Battlefield players, what they want to see, what you want to see, what I want to see, is basically faceless, nameless soldiers. I'm sure there are some of you out there who want to have specialists and you want to see them come back, but I would say probably like 80% of people just want things to go back to the way it was. Then there's also the AI in there at the moment, which is a problem because it's completely unmarked, so you don't know if you're playing against a real player or an AI player. So whilst Battlefield 2042 does have AI, it's definitely worse in Delta Force. So Delta Force does do some things better than Battlefield 2042, but it also does some things worse. And in general, 2042 is not a great game to be compared by anyway. So why are people playing it? Why are people hyping it up and enjoying it and looking forward to it releasing later this year, or if you're on console next year? Well, I think it really just boils down to the fact that people are absolutely chomping at the bit waiting for another Battlefield-like game. We've heard that World War III may be making some sort of a resurgence. I don't really expect that to do well, though, at all. We've had BattleBit, which obviously has kind of fallen off over past months in the past year. So really, your choices at the moment, if you're a Battlefield player and you want that sandbox experience, is a Battlefield game or Delta Force. Also, the amount of content that Team Jade have put on show here just for an alpha test, like there was so much stuff that they released and so many events that they had just in an alpha that lasted for a few weeks. There was additional maps released, there was additional game modes that came out, limited time game modes. They had tons of events that awarded people with actual like real money. Just recently there was like an event for getting the most amount of kills in a week, and if you got the first, I think, 20 positions on the leaderboard, you won a bunch of cash, $1,000 for number one. Clearly Tencent have more money than EA to put towards this kind of thing, but it really did incentivize people to take part and to play the game more. They've also told us that the first 4 seasons of the game are ready to go. Like, you can just play the game knowing that at least the first 4 seasons are already, they're going to be scheduled, and they're going to be released with a much better cadence than what we saw with Battlefield 2042, where DICE and EA basically spent the first several months, if not like almost the better part of a year, fixing the game with updates and getting it into a place where it was actually playable before they even approached making Season 1. And then I think overall, there is something to be said for the fact that it's simply a new game and it's being supported. People want to play a new game. At this point, Battlefield 2042 has been out for 3 years almost. Everybody knows that game like the back of their hand. We all know it inside out. There's no real content coming for the game. DICE have told us that the last season was Season 7, and yes, we are getting the odd patch every now and again, like tomorrow there's 8.1, is it, that's landing? But apart from that, the game is pretty much over, so there is no new content to experience, and I think everybody enjoys that time where you dive into a brand new game, you've got new maps to play on, you've got all the weapons to unlock, all of the attachments, all the achievements to get, and all of that knowing that down the line there are going to be more updates, more seasons and etc. coming out for the game. Like, that does have a big effect as well. So I'm definitely going to be jumping into Delta Force whenever it drops later this year. You guys can expect to see more content on the game from me here on the channel. I will of course continue to cover Battlefield. Do I think Delta Force is going to kill Battlefield? I really don't think so, unless EA and DICE completely drop the ball. And I would say at this point, they would really have to be completely out of their minds to try something a little bit dodgy with the game like they did with Battlefield 2042 and not listen to the community, not listen to the player base. However, saying that, We've seen EA and DICE do this multiple times before to our dismay, so, you know, never say never. They may just go in a really weird and wacky direction with the next Battlefield game, and maybe we just all move over to Delta Force. But assuming they are listening to us, assuming they are working on an absolute banger of a game, I don't think Delta Force is going to steal the limelight. It's just because the Battlefield crowd at the moment is really looking for a home. I think we all feel, many of us, displaced. A lot of us stopped playing Battlefield 2042 when that game launched, and this has been the closest thing to it that's released since. And if you're in the other camp, you don't like Delta Force and you think it's just a cheap knockoff and they're stealing all of DICE and EA's ideas, well, you know, that may be true, and I completely understand why you don't want to play the game. But if nothing else, this is a good wake-up call for DICE and for EA. I think this is going to put even more pressure on them to actually listen to their community and actually give us the Battlefield game that we want and the Battlefield game that we deserve. Guys, leave me your comments down below. Let me know if you are a Delta Force fan, enthusiast. Let me know if you're somebody who doesn't like the game, you think it's just a cheap knockoff, you think it's a copy of Battlefield, and you don't understand why people are even playing it. I want to hear all of your input. As always, thank you guys for watching the video and supporting the channel here. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more Delta Force and Battlefield, and I'll see you guys in the next one.